What's up, everybody? CP and SJ with you for another week of Every Day We're Covering. Talk sports, wagering, and just having a good time. SJ, it's been, I guess, maybe a little bit of a different type of season now here as we've moved into a little bit of NBA, NHL playoff stuff going on. Had a little fight card in your backyard here this past weekend, but a little different pace. We do got the Derby coming up here right around the corner this next week, so we'll have some hot and juicy stuff on that front. But yeah, it's I don't know, it's got a little different feel right now with the different sports going on.
For sure, you're definitely gonna, kind of just. It's almost like what do you want to call it? Like living life on the seat, edge of your seat there, and just pay attention. We'll throw something out to you quick, but we don't. It's not a good time to be like, oh, let's set up this show here and let's do some audio or video and get it out to you and give it a couple 2 days turnaround. It's not necessarily that type of time of year, sports wise at least, but we're still trying to do the best we can to get stuff out there. But hopefully this week will be a little bit more. Got a bigger events, especially with that Saturday. You mentioned the Derby, and it's also been a pretty typically big boxing weekend, which is decent fights this weekend. Even Friday night, there's some good action too. So we'll be able to get more of the traditional what people have probably gotten used to with that with the YouTube picks there. So be looking forward to that this week and recapping a little bit of what happened over the weekend.
Yeah, well, that's some good stuff on the horizon here for you, and I know I personally have done a poor job of trying to follow along closer with the NHL and NBA stuff. It just seems like there's always something stupid going on that gets in the way of me sitting down to really pay attention and watch much of it. But that's the way it goes sometimes too.
I mean, honestly, you shouldn't feel. I mean, you're probably on the right side of things, considering that damn dunk buzzer beater killed the three play deal I had yesterday. So that's kind of the way it goes with these types of sports. It's such a razor thin margin for error that's the type of things that kills you. And that would have been a pretty good haul there. So laid off today just because of that. I was like, if that's happening, I better take a day off.
Yeah, world telling you something there for a minute. That's the way it goes. All right, as we get rolling, we of course always talk about what maybe is interesting and new on the beverage horizon. And I've been on a little bit of a hiatus from that world, but SJ, I know you stumbled across something new here recently, or at least tried something that's a little bit new. People have probably seen it by now. And maybe that's not exactly also what you're going to talk about, but maybe you can elaborate on both, perhaps. What do you got going on over there?
Well, I mean, since you mentioned it, I was probably going to bring it up anyways, but I hadn't. I guess you just get used to like what's around you all the time, and you're kind of like, I'm not going to get that just because it's like a little bit of overload. And in my case, that's kind of Boulevard Brewing their products, and not saying it's bad. I like it. Most of the stuff they make is pretty good. It's just like you try to get off the typical fare and try to venture out and try some different things. But I was back to them this weekend. Long story short, and ended up getting just one of those variety packs. So I couldn't decide on one thing. So. But with this one, it's as far as I know, it's the at least if not the newest one they put out. One of the newer beers they have, and it's just called Boulevard Light. We brought it up a few weeks back when we were kind of talking about summer's coming up, with the Parch Madness deal, talking about how oh yeah, you can't beat a light beer on a summer day, and they're kind of going along those routes with the, like I said, just called the Boulevard Light. It's lager, of course, and it's basically what do you want to call it? Garage beer, lawn mowing beer. Deck beer, lake beer, whatever. Basically, just if you're going to be putting a long day in, this is something that you'd be okay with because it's, 89 calories. It's not 4% for being that light is actually pretty good for the ABV. I would think because usually you're sitting at at least 3.5 or maybe even, I've seen some high 2s lately just because when it's that light, kind of just goes with that's going to happen with that process, but. So you're still sitting pretty good there, and not only is the lightness of it, just like it actually drinks pretty easy because sometimes you do that and it's like almost tastes like flat water, when you get those really light beers or you get the the not quite bubbly seltzer and it just has that like kind of off taste and you're like, not that great, but it still tastes like a beer. So to me that's the good news because even though whether you're looking to maybe have a longer day or just maybe cut back some calories and not go so heavy if it's going to be an all day or a big long weekend event, this you still get that beer taste, and to me that's kind of what you're looking for. And because I know this is the popular thing like the with the zeros and the non things, but man, I don't know when I'm going for it, I want a nice little taste of beer when I'm getting a cold one. So that one's pretty good. And within that same pack, I think you inspired me to try something different with it. I didn't go the same way as you, but I'm gonna crack up a couple IPAs tonight. And I don't
Wow.
typically do that, but that's why I went the Boulevard route, because they were the one that space camper
Oh
variety that
yeah.
they make was the only like IPA that I'd be like, I'd actually get one of those and drink it. So this one is this the Chill Break endless IPA. I don't know if
Hmm.
it's newer. I just then whatever. I was like, I'll try it. Maybe it's a little bit lighter because it's only 5%, so not quite as stout as some of those other IPAs. But no, it's really good, and it's another easy drinker just like that. But you do get, and this is usually what I don't like. You get that what do you want to call it? That aftertaste, that kind of, you want to call it bitter or
Oh yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah.
So that's still there. The haziness is there. The hops are, almost can chew them, but not quite there. So if you like that, this right up your alley, and still a pretty smooth pour.
Interesting. Yeah, and those numbers are very intriguing on the light. That like you said, that's surprising to have that high of a ABV with that few of calories. I mean, that's about as low as I've
Yeah,
heard of. As far as a light, except for like yeah, you mentioned like that one that Miller has. It's like basically water. It's
yeah.
like 2.5% or something. Yeah, yeah. Interesting. I don't well, and I don't know what it is, but they do seem to have kind of a little bit of a push going with some like new stuff. I don't know if
Yeah.
that's just they decided the springtime was time to roll some new shit out or what's going on. But I definitely have a couple on my list now that I'm gonna be tracking down here because we you talk about that one, and then I've also seen, and I think I mentioned this before, the ad for that new they call it Easy Orange. That's a new one that they've got too. So
Yeah, I actually almost snagged that, and I couldn't remember if that was the one you mentioned or not. And I saw it, and I was like, "Yeah, we're gonna live a little dangerously." And plus, it gave me a 2-for-1, where it was two beers I hadn't tried as
yeah,
opposed to one. So, but that's not. I'm definitely gonna. That'll probably be next to give that one a whirl, because that I don't know if it was the art on the can or what it was, but I was like, man, that seems like that'd be a tasty one. That orange
yeah,
one.
yeah. It's like a blood orange wheat or something. It sounds pretty dang good. So we're gonna have to give that a whirl too. So yeah, they're pumping out some new stuff. That's always cool to find. And not only, of course, yeah, we're both kind of on the front of trying to find the local breweries. I think most of the time, but then when you get one that's maybe dipping their toe into some new water, that's also fun. So there's some things to maybe get on your palate and try out and let us know what you think about it. That'd be great as too. We want you to chime in. So that's what we're talking about there on that front. We're going to get into a few different topics here on the program this week. We've got, of course, NFL draft, the big story here this week in the sports world. So we'll touch on that in a couple different forms. We'll talk a little bit about, there's a story out about kind of the NCAA settlement that's supposed to be coming through that's still kind of hung up in the court system now. We've got some fun 90s apparel talk, and we'll probably touch on the NBA and NHL just to tell you where those series stand, and then, of course, get into a middle recap of some recent picks as well. So that's all on the slate here for you. But we'll start with the big topic, NFL draft here this week. Of course, happened in Green Bay. We I think we all knew that it was going to be one hell of a crowd that showed up there outside of Lambeau to do this thing, and it certainly turned out that way. They had massive numbers. It looked like each day of the draft. Obviously, a place where it's going to be a little bit more questionable whether the weather is great to be standing out there all day. But I think they did okay, handled it as best they could there on that front. And I didn't, notice any real bad weather or anything that would have scared anybody off. So got through that. But one of the big topics, obviously the story that carried on throughout the 3 days of course was the Shedeur Sanders deal, and that just reverberated because of the media push on that front. But one thing that was kind of a side effect of that was the fact that the number one pick didn't probably get as much, I guess much of his flowers as he should have gotten. That you always think that the kind of the highlight and focus is going to be on the guy that ends up taking, that first top spot. And a lot of times we know it ahead of time. This time we did as well. It was pretty apparent that he was going to be number one there with Cam Ward. But Yeah, and then even people from their own network were really calling out the situation because Scott Van Pelt made immediate comment about how there really wasn't a lot of focus and talk about Ward and giving him his moment, and we're still talking about other guys that haven't been drafted yet. So that's a fault, obviously, of coverage and the narrative that's pushed. And at the end of the day, I guess it's it's a network and producer choice on how you handle that, and a lot of people felt that it wasn't properly done.
Yeah, I well, perspective type of thing too. With any time that family's involved, because it's like the people that like him are like they can do no wrong and defend anything to the death that they say or do. So you're not getting through to those people, and then of course there's people that don't like him. So no matter what they say is going to be judged or more critiqued a little bit more harshly than somebody else that they maybe don't have those stronger feelings or just don't it's kind of just like indifferent towards. So that kind of all factors in, but mostly I do think it was just a little bit of overkill. Like there's always that guy or a couple guys that they end up falling further than you think they were going to, or get picked somewhere that's a little bit surprising. The shots, I mean, what was like Aaron Rodgers, like one of the first ones they really kind of like you felt bad for in a way before he became what he is now.
Mm-hmm.
But he just kind of sitting there like kind of just staring. And then of course more recently Levis, a few years ago, he was kind of didn't he end up going the second day and they were pretty set on him. And even like with the Texas receiver is a Golden that got picked by the Packers. I think he was there longer than they expected, but ended up being okay. But he was looking he's sulking a little bit in his chair there with that $1,000 suit on. Didn't feel too good then. So it's always like a thing, but it's just with anything that happens with that, with that family, it's just such a like overblown, whether it needs to be or not. So you can't expect much more than that. Yeah. Of course, not being a fan of theirs, I was like, oh, this is kind of found a little humor in it. But at the same time, I'm like, man, let's get this at some point, like just pick them and get it over with, because it's almost like, not that I watched much of the draft, but at some point you're like, this is just overkill and overtaking the whole, let alone the first day stories. But then after that, there's still guys that are getting picked from smaller colleges or places that maybe transferred or didn't transfer and kind of stuck with where they were and were a long shot and they end up getting picked, or there's tons of storylines, whatever the case may be. But everything, it was just about that. And I didn't watch probably more than, combined 3 days, maybe like 30 minutes of actually like watching it, just flipping. I might turn on for a minute or two, but and even I guess the commissioner comes out and says that it's too drawn out. I was like, oh yeah, you realize that now? It's only took about how many years to figure that out? So like the last day is my favorite because it's just like pick.
Yeah,
just it goes so. And I don't understand why that can't be done, because you can still recognize the players. You come out there, give them a jersey, take a picture, and go off and get that done. You could probably do the first round within an hour, I would think.
Oh yeah.
Or maybe hour and a half if you're kind of got to, I'm sure you got the ads and all that. You promise, but still, it doesn't need to be 3 hours for 30 picks or 32 picks.
Yeah, no kidding. It's crazy how long it takes, and even when the teams, I think, know. For some reason, they sit around on the clock, or according to what they're telling us, they haven't put their pick in yet. Who knows whether that's their decision or a television decision? We don't know. But why?
Was it Minnesota that one year that like was missed the pick or something?
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, dude, that was just almost like kind of. I was like, finally, good. That's what you get for just making this so that doesn't need to be and acting like it's some dramatic event when. In the most cases, you probably have known for a few weeks, which you should by then. I don't see how you couldn't, unless there's a trade that comes in late, or you find like find something out at the last minute about like personal life or off the field stuff. But other than that, I'm sure you got to know who you're picking well before that night. Every team.
Yeah, or at least you've got your list of your top 3 guys or whatever, and usually you're going to get one of them. One of them's going to fall to you at a certain point. So. That first round definitely should not be that much of a question mark, and all the drama that surrounds it. That's for sure.
One thing he's talking about how it's so drawn out, and then they have an announcement to announce when the schedule release is going to be in the middle of it all. It's like, seriously, like sometimes I get that it's a popular sport and everybody likes it, and I'm not in that group. I don't dislike it. I'm just like, I can take it or leave it for most things of it. Of course, the games themselves, I enjoy those and love watching a Sunday. You can't really beat that. You have, when you just have as many games on as possible at the same time. But as far as everything that goes with it and all the ancillary stuff, it's too much. It just I don't know, it's like a soap opera in most cases to me. Tell me when the games are, tell me what time they start, and I'll flip them on then. But they want to make everything like this, big ordeal. Like,
well,
it gets annoying.
That's what's so ironic about it too. Is like for a sport that's like so got their games down to pretty much a science of this is how long they're going to be, and they always fit into those windows, and they get them done in a good timely fashion, especially as compared to a lot of college football games. It's a total opposite. Here we are, we're making 3 hours out of just picking a few dudes. I understand that. I did see a comment. It was pretty funny, and it does make sense. Like, they're like, the Super Bowl doesn't prove that the NFL is like king, in America. They're like, the NFL draft does, because you have hundreds of thousands of people that are willing just to stand around just to hear some guys' names called. Like,
pay $20 for $20 for the cheapest beer on earth, and whatever else for snacks. And I seen, what were they? People lived in that, because it's a little different setup there with being basically like in a neighborhood. It's almost like, for what else, like Rosenblatt, but in a bigger setting, but kind of the same type of thing. And people charging $100 to park in their driveways. Yeah. So but that's okay. We're just gonna go stand around, hang out, have a good time, and even especially for the better teams, what do you get? 1, 2, maybe 3 picks throughout the 3 days, because usually you've either traded them away or you don't have. All the leftover picks, because you actually use those and got some value out of them, as compared to the teams that don't do so well and they don't really know what the hell they're doing with their picks. But that's another story. So
I mean, I think it would be interesting to, of course I considered, when it was in KC, like, just going, but like, it would be interesting to go and be there for a while and see how fast you did maybe just get bored. Because, like, for me, at some point, it's just going to be like, all right, well, this was fun, like, but let's go do something else. Like, I don't know how long unless you just turn it into your own personal, like, little tailgate party or something, you got some space to do some other stuff. I just don't see at some point how that, like, is fun anymore. I don't know.
Yeah, we literally, it probably helped that had some younger, the younger generation with us, because there is stuff to do there, whatever, kick a field goal or throw a ball and all that stuff. But after the first pick, we were out of there. We just we got to make it to the first pick. And of course they didn't tell, because the way it was set up there was not ideal either. So there was like the fan area, and then you had to kind of go down, walk a little bit ways down to get to where the stage was set up, and where you could like sit in the bleachers or be in the crowd. And they didn't like. At least we must have missed it, but I know we were paying pretty close attention to when they said. But by the time we tried to make our way down there, they'd already shut it off, and no one else was allowed in. So we just kind of had to see from over from off in the distance. So maybe that was another reason we left too. But yeah, it was it's a lot of build up for like not a lot of I guess there's not a big reward afterwards. You make it through that 2-3 hours or whatever. It's like that's it, type of thing. But that's why I guess an experience. It was never knew we were going to see it again, so you guys had to check it out. But other than the Sanders thing, I kind of got a kick out of that baby just freaking losing his lunch there for the guy that got drafted by the Saints. His son, or the son or daughter, I don't know if it was a boy, but either way, people were just saying like even they didn't want him to go to the Saints. They didn't want to play for New Orleans, because literally right when he answers the phone, he's like hugging his mom or something or whoever, and the baby just freaking just rouses everywhere. Just freaking just lets it go. And then also, oh gosh, I can't remember who it was, but some player's dog was just going crazy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That was those two. That was my two favorite parts. I don't know if you had anything similar in the draft, but that made it worth the whatever little time I spent watching. I was like, okay, now I can get in line with this. This is the type of stuff I like.
Yeah, that's the cool stuff. And I think obviously it's cool, like especially when you have some guys that you follow and you see those moments with their family and friends, and like the emotional side of it or whatever, the reward that it's paying off for them. Those moments are cool to see, but it's those are small little snippets of 30 seconds, and you saw the moment kind of thing. That's always cool, but the rest of it I guess just doesn't fill in the gaps as much. But
trying not to be a little too cynical, but part of me too is like when you see these you see the reaction, there's like 75 people in a room for like 10. I'm like, oh man, I hope this guy has his finances in order and just paying everybody's way here the rest of the no, after he gets his first check or starts making some money because he's going to end up in a bad spot there, like that 30 for 30 they did called broke. That's kind of what I think of when I see that. I'm like, oh man, I hope this guy. I mean, I understand you want to take care of your family to a certain extent, especially if it's like immediate family, parents, but the friends and the cousins of cousins, they gotta live their own life. But part of me, I try not to be too like negative, but I'm like, man,
Yeah.
I hope this guy is just. I hope they're just here for the party and they're still, you know, doing their own thing on the side and letting this guy just you know build up the money he's earned and kind of stockpile away for when, because even though I mean we how many people we've seen get drafted and it's like that's where it ends. That's like the
Yeah.
peak, because it's so hard to just make the team, let alone like in that violent of a game and that physical of a that kind of a lifestyle. It's hard to make it last. So
Hmm.
that might be as much money as they make even if they have a decent career on that one day.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing too. I think it gets, I don't know, maybe the whole thing I guess turns into being overhyped a little bit because yeah, you don't know, like these guys still have to go prove it on the next level. Yeah, I mean a lot of times there are some dudes that we pretty good idea that they're good enough at football that yeah, they're going to figure it out, they're going to do some things, but you just never know. And of course, there's the unknowns of injuries and whatever else, or just maybe there's a guy that's on front of them at that team. It's a friggin' all pro guy, and he's just gonna have to wait around a while. You never know how that works out. So that is interesting, and I think that relates too to the point of this whole Shadur nonsense. Is like it gets built up as a story, and then of course you mentioned like because it's that family and the attention that they of course have brought on themselves in the first place, but then the media just is attracted to that as well because it becomes a story by them making it a story, which is bizarre in its own right. But so then because a lot of people were saying like, well, if his last name wasn't Sanders, would anybody even been questioning this? Like, would it have been that big a deal? Yeah, I mean, yeah, you would have been like, oh, why this guy's not going? He seems pretty good, but nobody would have been making a hoopla about it every time somebody at the same position got picked before him. It just would have been like, oh, that's interesting. Maybe they like this guy better. Like, and it just becomes a story that's not there because we kind of manufactured it.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely true, and it's like, well, but that's also the reason they're being followed, because positive or negative, it's going to get attention
Mm-hmm.
one way or the other, and that's all. When it comes to whether it be a website or whatever network TV, that's all that matters is just go to their page, visit their site, and then they're happy either way. So that's probably part of the problem, but at the same time, it's like you can say it's like, well, it's not really anything they do, but in this case, you can't. I don't think you can really say that because everything was had to be so like outlandish and brash, and that's kind of the way it's been. And I don't know. You always kind of wonder. It's like, do they even do the kids like really enjoy his acting like this, or they think they have to like live up to this?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
not to let him any excuses or anything, but it's also part of it. Part of you as like someone that everyone's been a child or been maybe someone be like you could understand and be like, well, I guess this is what I'm supposed to do is
mm-hmm.
try to be like probably like his dad. So
Yeah.
I mean that's he could he's an adult and he should make his own decisions at this
Yeah.
point. But some of that, at least growing up, probably didn't do him any favors. I'm sure, because that's the type of situation where it's like, well, you're not gonna really, you can't really even match, let alone there's no way you're hardly gonna surpass what was accomplished, at least athletically. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's just like got to get it, do something in another way, whether it be the onlines, the TikToks, the Twitch,
Mm-hmm.
whatever,
Mm-hmm.
because that's all you could tell that was what was
Oh
there,
yeah.
the all the hangers on there, they had a good amount of an entourage there, and that's almost what made it kind of like, I don't know whether you want to say more comical or more sad, more embarrassing. It's just like they knew for a fact it was happening, and it didn't happen. It's like,
Yeah.
well, that is a risk that happens, and if some of the stuff that's come out after the fact, which you always hate the after the fact stuff, but with the NFL, they think they're the CIA, so everything's so like so
Mm-hmm.
tight lipped and so serious. So it could be true, could not be true, but there's been a lot of stuff said. What was said before the draft, whatever Dion thinking maybe he has more of a pull than he does have, or trying to kind of strong arm some teams, and that might have came into backfire. And it's still hearsay at this point, secondhand info, but it does at least some of that stories that have come out make some of it make sense. I mean,
Yeah.
like I said, it still could not be true. I'm not saying it's 100% accurate, but it at least would like fill in the blanks and tie some things together. Be like, oh, now that makes sense, because even as someone that isn't even close to like anybody that would like be like rooting for them or a fan of them, like don't want them to do bad, but I'm not gonna like celebrate anything they do. It was like a little surprising that it just kept going. You're like, he hasn't gotten picked, and I kind of just like stopped following and check back. I was like, he still hasn't gotten picked. Like, even the next day, and finally, like I'm almost like it was when he did. I'm like, I swear, I just like did it to like either end it or just like felt, not necessarily just because they felt bad, but it's like they were just like, all right, we'll just pick him, whatever. Because I mean, the Browns had already picked Gabriel like the same when they could have picked Sanders at that same time.
Yeah.
Like, why would they pick him now? Like, it makes no sense.
Yeah. And they already got 3 quarterbacks that they brought on the team before that. Like, what the hell are you doing?
It tells you why they are where they are.
The
because,
Browns,
I mean, the thing is, none of those guys will probably be with them in a couple of years, whether they have success or not. So that's just and I know a lot of players are trying to put out things act like they're supportive of him, but and then they probably feel bad for him and can understand the situation. But there's if you can help a team, you're going to get picked. And teams will overlook a lot of crap if you can help them win. So that and it's not even like you're not dealing with any criminal things, like he's been in trouble, nothing like that. So that's the type of things that would make you fall that far, not being an asshole, which that seems like mostly what the reason behind it is.
Yeah. You heard all the stories about how the interviews went so poorly and just kind of he acted entitled and indifferent in some situations, and it seems to track a little bit with what we saw. I know you saw too, of course. The internet's the one of the beautiful things is like the shit you say lives forever. So of course somebody dug up the old tweet from Dion about how he'd never let a young quarterback play for the Browns like a few years ago. So like, here we go. We'll forgive and forget anything if somebody can write me a paycheck. So
well, then there was also the one about I guess who knows what happened the day it happened or whatever, but saying that he was guaranteeing he was a top 5 pick and saying, just basically like just mouthing off that there's no way he would get drafted below that, and that didn't happen. And then my favorite one was the video they did though of how when we talked about a couple weeks ago the jersey retirement deal and all whatever that, but they literally just like rewound it, did it in reverse.
Yeah.
So it looked like they were covering his name and number after he didn't get picked. So I thought that was pretty clever. So sometimes that's the, at least for me, and I think you're probably in line there. That's the good side. That's when the internet's at its best.
Oh yeah, the jokes were good. There was a lot of good stuff. The other one that was floating around was it's going to be awkward when he has to go back to Colorado and use a new number because his other one got retired. Crazy stuff. But I mean, the unfortunate thing about it, like you said earlier, was just like it overshadowed so much of other stories throughout so long because it went on so long and people just kept bringing it up. Obviously, and then you got guys like Kuiper going ballistic. Like what's your personal gain in this deal? Like, and why are you? I mean, it's okay to be passionate about what you're doing, but like.
Over one guy though, it's just weird. Like you don't work for the teams. You don't work. You're supposed to just be like a supposed, independent individual, unbiased opinion. Like if you couldn't be surprised, but how passionate people were. Even like Desmond Howard, I was like, dude, all you do is sit up there and giggle. Like you don't even, form sentences. You just like, So like I don't know how you can get. I'm guessing he's probably somewhat built a relationship with Dion. He thinks they're buddies, so he was butthurt about that. And I thought it was kind of interesting, especially when they were kind of going off on that rant. It was Howard was there. I think Reese Davis was the host. I guess they must have the game. David was there. And then was it that Field Yates or whatever his name is? The with the mop top. But either way, when they were when they were going through this saying like, oh, I can't believe he got picked and all this stuff, and then Milroe gets picked like right during during this, rant, and then Saban's, gets, as happy as could be because that's his guy too, of course. So, and they just kind of saying like, and they wanted to like say kind of something that there's no way he's better than Sanders, but none of them had the cojones with Saban sitting right there. So you just say you could tell it's like, especially Howard, he really wanted to say something, but he ain't got nothing to offer besides, like any type of like analysis. But I guess the thing that I was kind of stuck with me. And I guess the last thing I could say on this, we don't have to spend our whole night on this, but either way, it was just that it was the Yates guy, which he's at least he's got some analytic background to him. He does his homework. Seems like he's at least got some type of he has some research behind his opinions. It's not just because he likes some guy or whatever. But he was saying his whole thing, and he was using this as a positive, which I didn't really agree with this part. But he was saying how I guess according to his statistics or whatever analytics he had was that when there's no pressure in front of his face and he's got a clean pocket, he's 80% accurate or something. I was like, bro, problem is the game don't work like that.
Yeah.
Like, how often do you have a clean pocket, especially in the NFL? Mm-hmm. Like, so in anything that you want to do to like prop him up was, I think he could have used something else. I don't know if that was the best, best thing to be like, oh, see, this is why he should be picked. At least I thought that was a little curious to do that. And maybe he thought the 80% would just like blow people away, but I don't know. Anybody watches football, it's like, especially in college and let alone that, it's like you have more instances of him holding the ball too long than you do of him having a clean pocket. So and that was like, I think a lot of that came up too with on the field stuff outside of his attitude was the fact that you take sacks you don't need to take and force balls and comes turnovers and that's the type of crap that keeps you out of the NFL. Like you can do a lot of things poorly, but mistakes is kind of something they don't overlook. I mean, you have quarterbacks that have lasted a long time for just literally being game managers and not causing issues.
Yep, and not blaming their teammates when things go wrong.
That's part of it. That helps.
Of course, the analysis thing is always ridiculous too. Like I got a text from one of my buddies in the group who was like, Saban loves every pick. Like every pick's the greatest pick that ever happened. It's true. It's like some of those guys are like, oh, I love this. This is a great pick. This is the best pick.
Well, that's always something I just kind of do on my own. Like, and I don't really care enough, or I'd like track it more. But I'm always trying to think. I was like, just try to think like back to last year before when I'm watching the draft and it's like gushing over this guy about like how amazing he is, and I'm like, dude, wait, like what, like only like 20% of these guys will probably even be in the league by next year, let alone the year after.
Yeah.
So I mean, it just, I mean, I get what you're trying to like kind of sell this and make it seem entertaining and all that type of thing. But yeah, it's always kind of comical how they're just like everything is is this can do no wrong. It's like, well, that's the case. Why all these teams should be undefeated then, right?
Yeah, no kidding. Well, and at the end of the day, when you think about it, like there's so few people that are playing. Like there's only so many teams, and there's only so many spots on the field, and they're not just going to kick the old team out to bring in these new guys. Like it's hard. It's hard to do that. So.
Well, especially with the quarterback discussion covering so much of it, a lot of people I was speaking with and just talking about like, oh, they need a backup quarterback. It's like, well, yeah, but you're not going to draft a backup quarterback because you don't even know if they're going to make your team, let alone can you rely on them as a backup? Because, I mean, hard to put a number on it, but there's a good handful of teams, at least, if not more, every season that end up playing their backup meaningful snaps. And you want to, a rookie is not usually the way to go that route. You want somebody that's established, has some tread on the tires and kind of knows what's going on there. You don't mind getting a rookie at quarterback, obviously, because they get drafted, but you're not, unless it's like a big need where you're trying to get like a Cam Ward where it's like, I hope, when you think it's like a can't miss type of prospect and you want him to come in and play right away. But if you're going for a backup, you're not typically going to draft them very early. Fourth, fifth, sixth round, something like that. Yeah. You're not looking for a backup in the second or third round. If you're going to draft, in the first round, you want them to start. You're not trying to build your team with rookie backups.
Yeah, no, and the kind of money that you have to pay them to do that too. Right. So the other thing that was related to the football world, and I guess this kind of tracks down to the next level there in the NCAA world. I just saw this, and I guess, obviously with all these things, it's hard to understand what the hell anything's going on when it comes to legal world. But the judge overseeing the $2.8 billion antitrust lawsuit settlement that involves the NCAA and the nation's 5 largest conferences delayed final approval of the plan because they have concerns about the roster limit situation that's been brought up. The judge signaled that she's ready to approve the rest of the settlement, but wants both sides to come up with a way not to harm current athletes who will lose their spots on teams. The settlement calls for scholarship limits to be replaced by roster limits. And, of course, the deal would be 105 players beginning this season would be the roster limit. The average roster last year was 128 players. So, yeah, it's pretty obvious that guys are going to lose their spot. There won't be as many guys, and especially like teams that are, like we talked about last time, that have a history of, walk-on players that eventually do make the squad. So that makes that more difficult. How that all gets sorted out, who knows? And yeah, maybe this delays this even longer, so some of these changes aren't going to happen until who knows when. But what the angle is and what the, I guess, solution that the judge wants, I don't understand. But it obviously is something that's going to hang this thing up for a little while.
You can understand, like, especially at least looking at it financially of why these, in place with the all the kind of type of new revenue coming in and those type of limits and trying to get. I mean, I hope that's, you would think that's why they're doing this, trying to get a handle on the NIL stuff. But
Yeah.
when you have like sweeping legislation like this, you can't just be like, okay, tomorrow you have to do this, and when you're considering cutting, 20 players loose that, or maybe if they're not on a scholarship, there's some type of like financial agreement in place likely. And with NIL stuff, scholarship limits haven't been as like, it hasn't been such a bigger deal for some of these players to come. Like they might get a little bit of their college paid for, or get something on the back end and not have to pay the full rate that they would have had to if they were like a traditional walk on. So that's a factor too, because they might not have been at school there, and then it's just like, well, we're gonna make this decision like just a few months before you have to enroll in school on top of everything. So now you got to find like a new place in a matter of weeks, and you probably want to get there if you're playing still. You're going to want to get there as soon as possible, because who knows what your situation is there for playing time, and you want to, get on that roster and get in good with that team. So it just seems like a lot to expect somebody to kind of like flip their life upside down within a short amount of time, because you think like this is the magic number. And I think there probably does need, I mean, this shows you the incompetence that's been there for decades. If the fact that there wasn't anything like this in place at all, it's just like, however many players you want, that's up to you. As long as you can, as long as you can, handle them and run your program, do whatever you want to do, which seems a little bit dangerous, but I guess that's just the way it was. But
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily against some type of a cap, but you just can't. It's hard to ask that much of a change in that short amount of time. I guess would be my deal with this. Like, go ahead and do it, but if you can agree to it and then make it like a, if it's fair for everybody else and makes it a little bit more level, and you can have some parity within football, because I mean I think that's what most of it obviously is centered around. And there's some other things out there too, as far as what you can pay and how many the Title IX type of issues. But when we're speaking in football terms, at least like that's fine. Make it fair, or is it fair as possible? But it can't just be like a snap change. Like it takes some time with some of these. I mean, I know would you say the average they had it as like 128, but there's a lot of teams over 140 or even higher than that, just because of traditions they've had, or just the people that are willing to, or maybe can afford to foot the bill, and they just want to be a part of that team and have that experience.
Yeah, and I don't see anything wrong with that either, I guess. But it's it's interesting. I don't know where eventually this will land. I guess the other part too is I kind of feel like there maybe should be some sort of grandfather situation too for the guys that are already in programs. Like, how is that fair that you make this decision now? They're already they're invested, they're already part of it.
Well, what if someone's like 3 or 4 years into something and they're just like, I only got like 1 year left, I was just going to stick it out. I knew I probably was going to play, but I got to maybe suit up for the home games and and then I'm going to move on and get a job and be a regular person. But yeah, it seems a little bit rash just to be like, sorry bro, you're out of here. But I mean, it's and then I don't think the coaches want to be discussed either, because everyone gets mad about, it's like pro sports now. Well, that's part of, you gotta can't be liking this part of it either. I'm sure the same people that are complaining about players getting paid are gonna be complaining about this, right?
Yeah, it cuts both ways. You gotta have both sides of it. So I don't know, it'd be interesting to see where that eventually lands and settles. And of course, there's so many parts of it, not just related to this, but this is just a piece of that puzzle that has to be sorted out. So we'll keep an eye on it for sure. There is one other college football related topic that I wanted to bring up here, and I I didn't preface SJ on this before the program because I wanted his honest reaction. But apparently, the two squads that we follow got a little beef here recently. There's some comments made by Mr. Rule in his press conference the other day because they were asking him about some recruiting tactics, and he made some references to if guys want to go play in the Big 12, that's fine, but it's not the same as this league, and I'm worried about beating Ohio State and Michigan. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand, like, from the recruiting angle and the competitive angle where he's going with this and why he's kind of pushing that way. But at the same time, like, it's like it does sting to other people a little bit when it's like, okay, worry about beating Iowa too. Like, I don't know. I guess the interesting part of it that I wanted to get your reaction on is not just the comedy of the situation. It's the things have changed on how recruiting is going now, and obviously these high school kids aren't getting the attention they would have previously. And maybe some teams are going to look at things differently and do things different ways, but it is very intriguing that right now Iowa State's got 6 of the supposed, top ranked, 10 ranked kids in the state of Nebraska that are coming to play for them. And none of them were offered, except one of them, I believe, by Nebraska. So times have changed, and it's interesting to see what that idea and tactic is. But I guess what are your thoughts on how that works for, the school and the state you follow?
That was the whole thing to me. What you just brought up at the end there, I think it was caught him in a moment where he was getting tired of people asking him why they didn't offer these kids, and those you can't hold it against those players. But I will circle about 4 or 5 to 6 Bellevue West, Elkhorn South, and Gretna types that were offered scholarships and they didn't even see the field, let alone make it through 4 years of college. So I think they're not necessarily against recruiting in-state players because there is a couple that are coming and maybe one more. That's pretty highly touted. But I think that's probably part of it too. He's probably was caught in the moment a little bit, tired of people asking about why you're not offering these kids. Because the thing is, and I don't know if this was every team, I can only speak that follow the team that I follow, but if somebody, they don't offer them and they, end up doing at least fairly decent or well somewhere, it's always like, oh, I can't believe we let him go. Because I guess even NFL Network had to, and I think it was Klatt, he's a Colorado guy, so I'm not surprised, but I guess he brought up the fact that Xavier Watson's from Omaha and went to Notre Dame. But that was, when Scott Frost your coach, all bets are out the window. So, that's that's a totally different thing. So, so I guess he brought that up. I didn't catch it, but so that was another thing just to kind of be like, well, they don't even recruit the players in state. But there's also some kids that, whatever state you're in, just want to go somewhere else. So that's part of it too. It doesn't mean you can go to LA or go to some of like, if I was 18 and had a scholarship and could live someplace and be at the beach, I'd probably do it too. So that's part of it. But I think it was more about just the in-state recruiting thing, and they haven't had a lot of success with in-state players across the board. So maybe they're saying we need to try go a different route and see if maybe it works for something else. Because I think those players are all pretty good. It's just maybe they don't fit what they want to do either. So that's part of it too. And I know the quarterback especially, like he came on the scene after they have 2 quarterbacks coming in and maybe a third here for the next year. So, we talk about the roster limits, how many quarterbacks are you going to keep too? So I don't know, like it's there's more to it than that, but I think for the most part, it's just more of a like, we're going to take the best players we can get no matter where they're from, I think was the message.
Yeah. And I get that. Like, you can't just, and obviously it's hard for the most of the, like, the hardcore, like love where you live guys are always going to be like, why didn't you recruit, these kids? Why did we let our kids go? And yeah, it sucks when that happens. And there's obviously, there are times when where it's like, this isn't this will be a miss if we don't get this kid kind of deal. But even that happens when you try your damnedest. Iowa State basketball would have 4 or 5 more guys in their Hall of Fame if that didn't take place. Lots of kids' names went somewhere else. So, that's the way it goes sometimes. I get that. But yeah, you can't just do it to do it either. Yeah. It has to be because that player is going to have an impact. And I saw some people make comments, about like, well, yeah, okay, these kids may make you X amount of good, and maybe that's not as good as you want to be.
Well, I was just going to say the pressure's on a little bit at this point too. So it's like maybe they'll take some chances again when they get down the road. but you're looking at 8 or 9 at least this coming season. So they're probably gonna maybe stretch themselves a little with the portal and maybe go a little bit more experience and then circle back. But I mean, hopefully those kids do well wherever they go. I mean, it's like I guess I'm probably different than a lot of, especially when you get online. Cause it's like, I mean, you want everybody to come there, but it's like if they don't, it's like, well, I mean, everybody's got to make a decision and live their life, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like it sucks when you lose on a good player, but I don't know. Sometimes I think like everyone thinks it's like they don't typically think like a fan of player. It's like, and even when it teams like maybe you think like, oh, they're not so great, but if they see that they can come in and play right away, or if they can go to a school and kind of be the guy and be the star, like some players will up going to whoever they think is the top spot, like wherever Ohio State or whatever, because they don't want to be another guy, they want to be the guy. So
Yeah.
it depends where you go. Like I'm sure they'll be treated well there, and they will step it into a pretty good spot. So I mean, maybe they thought it just offered them a better chance to play right away too. Who knows? Like,
Yeah, that could be too. So yeah, you can. Every situation obviously is different. It's not one group making this collective choice. Um, the and I think it also speaks too to the things are different. Like, there are going to be some teams that hardly even pay attention to the high school ranks now, because they know that even if they do get them and they turn out to be a decent player, maybe they already have them a year. Yeah. So like, why even go through the effort sometimes? Or
it's easier to offer somebody actual, you can say, here, I'll give you this money. We accept it or not. Just go with the pay for play deal. And they're like, oh, that's not good enough. Well, we'll just go to the next guy, or do that instead of trying to, go the whole old school recruiting where you say, try to say, whatever it is, your education, go through your whole lifestyle, and then a lot of different approaches you can take now with that option available.
Yeah, and I guess the other side of it too is like, okay, maybe some of these kids aren't ready to compete at that level quite yet. But maybe a school sees the potential that they could, and they feel like maybe these guys are the guys that we could keep around for a while to develop. Yeah. That's pretty hard to do anymore, but yeah, maybe you get a few of them here and there that way. So that's the other side of it, I guess.
Well, and there's places where you will have a little bit more of a leash, and some teams are. I mean, I don't think anybody talks about it, but the teams that win the most right now have the most turnover as well.
Yeah,
they're not exactly just letting somebody hang around if they're not having a good seat. About 1 or 2 years, and if you haven't made a move or contribution, you're probably mutually part ways, or however they say it to be nice. Like move on from the program, what it blessed or whatever the tweets are.
Yeah, blessed.
Got the little note ready to go and say enjoyed my time here, whatever.
Yeah.
However it may be, but still that's another part of the conversation. And like I said earlier, it's like it sucks when you lose a player and they go to get someone else, but not as often as brought up. And I'm sure you've seen this too with players that you do end up getting and they don't pan out. That doesn't seem to get brought up as much as when you lose a guy and they end up doing well somewhere else. It's like, well, we brought this guy in from whatever 8-man football, and he didn't even sniff the field. And so should we be commended for that?
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. Well, yeah, and you talk about the fucking team that was just won the national title had a new quarterback, new running back, 10 different players probably that started somewhere else. So
probably had to have their names on their, like old school with this masking tape on their helmet their whole season because they didn't even know each other. So yeah, that's the way it goes. I mean, as of now, that's the way it's going to be for a lot of places.
Oh yeah, for sure. Interesting. Obviously too, the other side of this that I thought was funny is I know just from experience in watching the past situations, Matt Rule and Matt Campbell do not like each other. They're not friends. Like they've had some run-ins in the past. There's a famous photo of those two shaking hands at midfield where they're not looking at each other, and it's because their teams got into a fight on the field during the game. So yeah,
that's a good. Probably has a little to do with it too, because wasn't even thinking that way with the old Baylor Iowa State days. So.
Yep, and that's definitely part of it. The two things I think that he did misstep there is, like, obviously don't make the comment about the teams that you're trying to beat thing. That just makes you look dumb when you're trying to put yourself put yourself in a level or whatever, and who knows what those levels are anymore. Like that's not even to me. That's not even the right argument. And then I guess the part I didn't understand either was he was made the comment about, well, kids need to come to camp or whatever, and it's because they're so far out, I guess, a couple years out from, they're offering kids earlier, so that whatever. I mean, I don't know what that is. I mean, is that just as much your fault as theirs? Like, make the invitation. Maybe they don't when they give them the invite. I don't know. I don't know how that shit works anymore. And maybe that stuff's not important to kids anymore because they know that it's all bullshit now anymore. Anyways, who knows? But I just thought that was kind of a weird little wrinkle that he threw in there at that juncture.
Yeah, I do know. I guess with the camp thing, I can speak a little bit to that. Like, because even a former player whose son's on the team now, he was a little worried he wasn't going to get offered because he wouldn't go to their camp. Because I guess a lot of players think they can do 7-on-7, and then that's good enough. But I think with them, like the deal is because especially the way they kind of find talent is what they say is their, kind of where they're comes from is just the numbers, and they want to see them run. They want to get some measurables and that type of thing. And then they'll offer. So I think maybe that was the thing. But I didn't realize that was a big of a deal until that was actually brought up when I was listening to a local show the other day in Omaha, and they said that he was a little concerned because he didn't. I mean, the only camps he went to was Stanford and somewhere else. And so like they were. I guess it's for some teams I guess it's a bigger deal. I don't really know. Like, I guess this depends how you and I think that's probably more for like the fringe guys, which I don't understand if you're in state though why you wouldn't go to.
Well, yeah, why wouldn't you?
Whatever camps that and so you can't really, and this probably more of the fans thing than it is the player thing, but maybe it's not, but you can't not do everything on your end and then be mad if a team doesn't.
Yeah.
Come, it's gotta be like a 50-50 deal. Cause even I know with like, just doing, certain things with soccer in our family, it's like you go to these, what they call the ID camps, and there's like 20, 30 colleges there, and then they'll send you a letter after and be like, hey, come to this camp, we'll be here again. And you kind of start building those relationships. So maybe it's just the deal where it's like they just want to see them because, you got to talk to somebody. But yeah, I don't know. I think it was more just a kind of like fed up day or something, tired of the in-state talk. And because that would be a little bit grinding because it's like they want everybody to be, walk-ons from 8-man teams, but then they also want friggin' 5-star quarterbacks. Like you can't have both.
Yeah.
Like you got one or the other. Like, and I understand there's room for but that's the issue that you're not going to get the walk-ons with this 105 deal.
Yeah, they have.
You can't take chances. You can't risk it that a roster spot's going to go to somebody that could maybe be okay. It has to be somebody that can contribute.
Yeah. Interesting. And that whole world obviously is going to continue, I think, to change and. How that's handled, how teams evaluate kids, how, what focus is placed on whether it's high school or you're just looking at college or you're even to the point where we're maybe looking at junior college because kids decide to do that. Who knows? It is a weird time, that's for sure. But that was a little interesting local flair to it recently. The NBA, NHL playoffs still rolling on. We've been throwing some things at you here and there as far as picks are concerned. I think it has been a little bit of an up and down as far as the results are concerned. Like I said, haven't been paying hardcore attention to how everything's going, but we've seen some good games and then others where weren't really all that exciting. Of course, your prediction from earlier, as we talked about the 50-point beatdown to start the series, did come true. The Thunder were able to eke it out and sweep the series 4-0. The last game did come down to a 2-point game. How you go from 50 to 2 is interesting. But
even in Game 3, they were down by 18 or so, and they ended up winning. I mean, they came back from it, but I was just like, man, the ebbs and flows there are kind of crazy. And after they did that, I was like, well, that was kind of all Memphis had to throw at him. But as far as like my interest, I'm about to be done because freaking Lakers they're done dealing, man. They pissed that one away today, and can happen. It's not impossible, but I don't know, with this team being down 3-1, it's they just don't have that supporting cast. And one of the guys I work with, he's a Lakers fan too, and after game 1 I said, man, this ain't gonna be good. He's like, oh, it's a series. I'm like, bro, it's not the matter if they lost the first game, it's like how they lost it and how they looked. Like they did not look anything like that last month and a half of basketball they played. I mean, you can't rely on guys, like Vanderbilt and Finney Smith, and even Austin Reeves has been dog crap, and he actually had a pretty decent season. But I mean, at that age, maybe if LeBron was 7 years younger, maybe 10, then it's different. And I think Luka's honestly played well. He had almost 40 today, so it's not on him. I can tell you that. And he was, crapping himself, I guess, the last game, and he still had a decent night.
Yeah.
At least overall, like not great points wise, but he didn't play terrible. So that's I know that's going to come up at the end of the year. It's like, oh, was that trade really worth it? It's like, well, he did his part, so I ain't going to be mad. I'm going to say that now before if they end up losing this series, it's nothing that he did, and they definitely wouldn't be the 3 seed if they wouldn't have traded for him. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, that's true. Just to give you a little quick rundown of where everything else sits, the Cavs are up 3-0 over the Heat after they won 124-87 yesterday. Tied between the Nuggets and the Clippers now at 2 each. Nuggets won 101-99. That's an interesting back and forth affair.
Yeah, that was the game that freaking screwed me there. Right there is that it was and make this even worse. The as far as I'm gonna trust that they're accurate, this is the first ever buzzer beating dunk in a playoff game ever. It's like, and it's 2025. Like, we've been playing basketball in the NBA for 50, 60 some years, and first time it's ever happened. So that kind of tells you how crazy that is, and the fact how does it even happen? It's like, I guess standing around and watching, just hoping it goes in. But I'm kind of interested if it does end up going south here for LA. Just that Warriors Rockets series is probably honestly the one I've been most intrigued on of all the series so far. Just I talked to a couple of people and just mentioned, like, I don't like them, not a fan by any means, but that Warriors team, for some reason, they were just kind of getting it together there at the end of the season.
Yeah, and they certainly have carried that on. They're up 2-1 now after a 104-93 win there yesterday. They seem to have an interesting combination of guys. That's for sure. And then Butler certainly fit in pretty well there for him. Interesting in multiple ways. The Knicks were 94-93 winners today to go up 3-1 over the Pistons. You mentioned Timberwolves 116-113 over the Lakers today. They're up 3-1. And then the Celtics are ahead as we speak over the Magic. Not by a lot, but there's about 5 minutes left in the game. Celtics lead that series 2-1. And then later tonight, Pacers-Bucks will play their game 4. Pacers lead that series 2-1. That's another pretty good series battle going there. So there is some fun stuff to watch, that's for sure. And I think it will get even more, obviously intense and interesting here as some of those series get to the tail end of those games, for sure. On the hockey side, it's been a little bit of back and forth, and especially in a couple of series. The Stars and Avalanche are knotted up at 2 games each. Avalanche got back in business with a 4-0 victory there yesterday. It was the Maple Leafs going up 3 or they're up 3-1 over the Senators. Had a chance to close it out and didn't do it. They lost in overtime. That's got to get Leafs fans itching the butt cracks a little bit again. Don't want this to go south again. That's how this goes for that team. The Golden Knights were 4-3 winners in overtime yesterday to tie that series up with the Wild. That's a good one. I think that's going to go the distance there. And then the Lightning showed a little life yesterday, 5-1 over the Panthers. They're up 2-1. It's funny you talking earlier about your situation with the Lakers. The guy that works at the radio station I used to work at with, I'm friends with him now, and he's a Tampa Bay guy. He's from there. He loves the Lightning. But I walked in the other day and gave him shit about the first game. I was like, man, what are you gonna do? Like, this is crazy. He's like, oh, they're done. He's like, they're toast. He's like,
he was already off. Yeah.
he's like, as soon as they got that goal and the power play, go 4-1 in that first game, I knew it was over. It's done. They don't have the guys. So he's kind of just like, he gets that feeling. It wasn't because they lost, but it was how they lost.
Yeah.
That he's definitely concerned. The Capitals, Canadians, Caps up 2-1 in that series. They're up 3-2 in the game that's almost done right now, too, as we're recording. So they might go up another one in that one. The series tied between the Blues and the Jets. Blues were 5-1 winners today to tie that up. Hurricanes 3-1 winners over the Devils, or 5-2 winners, today. They're 3-1 up in the series. They're that one. And then the Oilers-Kings will play tonight in the late game. Kings lead that series 2-1. That certainly is one, too, that's intriguing, and a lot of people have started to murmur a lot more here recently about old Mr. McDavid, and it's like, are you going to have to get the hell out of there to let this career expand because, man, even last year, like in the last 2 years, it was like, dude, this Edmonton team is legit. Like they've got the dudes as far as the offensive side of thing goes. They can score. You get Draisaitl and McDavid on the same team. It's just like at some point they're going to be unstoppable, but it just has not come together for them. And I don't know if that's just if it's not going to happen. It sure looks like that at this point. But unfortunate when you get a player like that, is pretty close to generational, and you want to see them have a chance to succeed, and he just hasn't had that moment yet. We'll see if it gets there.
Was able to hit speaking of the NHL, the totals has still been riding those a little decent, and surprisingly, there's been a lot of 6.5s out there. So if you feeling a little lucky, it is, kind of pick your spot and just kind of stick with it. It's more of a marathon than a sprint, if you will. It can't just. It's not going to happen every night, but you find that happy spot and just kind of stick with it because. Of course, you're going to have your random 7-goal game, but more times than not, that's even with how offense has kind of had an uptick over the last few seasons. That's still a hell of a lot of goals for these teams, especially in the playoffs, considering how good the goalies are and just how tight these games are. It's a 4-3 game is a lot more rare than a 2-3 or even a 2-1 type of thing.
Yeah, no doubt, for sure. So that's a little bit on those two sports in the playoffs. We'll continue to follow along. Of course, keep following us on Twitter if you want to see our picks for those kinds of things. At SJMBets, at Cherokee CP. SJ's been doing a pretty consistent job of getting that out for you in the morning so you can take a look at it. And I've tried to follow along a few times here as well. So keep doing that, and we'll probably ramp those things up as I said, those series get a little bit more hot and heavy and interesting. Did see a little fun story here today, and I thought this was worth bringing up because, of course, a lot of us look back at this era as pretty nostalgic, especially, of course, for the age that we were as we grew up. But there's a story that came out today from a gal that writes for The Score, and it was talking about the lasting value of 90s sports apparel and the buried treasure that it has become nowadays. Of course, we all know that the old starter jackets for sure are like a part of history as far as apparel is concerned. It has its place in history and is pretty indicative of the 90s if you just see one like that. Okay, you see it, yep, that's the 90s. Like,
well, if you had one, you were like, man, you were living large too.
Yeah, no kidding. Back then, like $180 or whatever it was back then. It was like, that was like buying a damn broke down car basically. Yeah. It's like, what the hell? But they're cool. And of course you had the few of them that seemed to be either they were produced more than the others, or they just had this like weird cult following because of the colors and the logos and stuff. And it just so happened to be the team that I followed was one of them because I lived briefly out in Las Vegas for a while with the family, and that was when UNLV won the national championship, the old Tark and Larry Johnson days. So I was a Larry Johnson guy, so I became a Hornets fan when he went to the NBA. And that was one of the jackets that people seem to gravitate to. I don't know if it was the colors, the logo, whatever, that brought it. And some of those things obviously now have turned into very valuable assets if you've been able to hang on to one.
Yeah, I don't know if this was on the list, but I had one of them Georgetown one. I don't know if that was in it, but I wish I would have kept that sucker because these freaking hipsters probably give me a few $100 for that. And just so they could. I was looking around in my wall here. I got a couple old hats hanging up here. I might have to price those out, and I don't know what kind of. I was talking to a guy about sports cards the other day because I kind of been out of the game for a while, but slowly, learning about certain things of the. Boys are into that and stuff. So I was like, I don't even know where do you trade cards now these days? Is eBay still a thing, or where do you go? So I have to get into that. The card shops, I know there's a few around here, but I don't know if they still print the Beckett. I gotta get back into that sports trading world and see where all the things are. Because I'm sure there's got to be some online marketplace, but also it's like, how do you do it then? Because it's like, I get that the value, you can price it out anywhere, but it's like I'm not just gonna send something to somebody and hoping that they pay on their end or get it in a good fashion. Like, oh, this isn't we used to say mint condition, or I don't know what they call it now. It's probably some different term, but either way, it's on like I don't necessarily care for that. So Yeah, we'll have to look into that, but I might have to see if I have an old box somewhere and dig out that jacket because I could use a little extra cash to maybe make some plays on there, right?
Yeah, yeah, no kidding. It'd probably get you good little egg to start with there. Yeah, a couple of them that they did mention. They mentioned the Hornets. They mentioned the Raiders,
Yeah.
and then they mentioned the San Jose Sharks was another team too that
Oh,
was
I remember. Yeah, I was
popular.
gonna say. I
Yeah,
thought you said, and when you said when you're out, I thought maybe you were gonna say like that red UNLV. If that was one, I could see that
yeah,
being a
true.
popular because I remember seeing that. So just with the logo, the rebel logo there on the
Mm-hmm.
back. So
Yeah,
yeah,
the old yeah, the handlebarred mustache musket holding rebel. Yeah, that's a good one. Um, yeah, they said that some of those jackets, and I'm missing the piece here. They had oh yeah, there you go. Fetch any. They said that a lot of them, especially the ones that were popular, that people still have an affinity for. Anywhere from 150 to $500 right now is what some of those
no,
are going for. So
uh,
that's a good little
yeah,
price tag. And you mentioned the hats. Now, I about crapped myself when I saw this too. They said that some of these hats, and especially for like, they said defunct teams or minor league teams that had some like funky logos or
right.
icons,
Like the Lookouts are one of those teams we used to have, or like even like Montreal Expos. I know that's always been a
Yeah.
hot ticket, even in the meantime. So
Yeah, they said that the Hershey Bears, a minor league team, had a hat of theirs that sold for over $700 recently, and then this one was like, holy crap! Like, who the hell does this? But so Philadelphia Phantoms, they apparently were a minor league hockey team, and they had a cool logo or whatever. The hat sold for $1,600 recently.
that's wild.
Who the fuck is paying for this stuff?
Yeah. Well, that's always kind of when I was talking about the sports memorabilia thing. And guys speak with that at work, he's kind of into that world a little bit, and he's talking about the bobbleheads he sold, and a guy drove a couple hours and paid him $400 for a bobblehead just because he had to have it for his collection. I'm like, and I get that there's like some connection or nostalgia to it because
Mm-hmm.
just with sports in general, there's always like that. It's almost more of like an emotional tug or like a memory you had. Maybe you went to the games with with a family member, or you had like this unique experience. But I'm like, at the same time though, it's like people buy these tickets to it's this bobblehead night, or it's this jersey night, or this hat night. And it's like, do if you see all these guys just like trying to sneak in line or get these extra things. It's like, I mean, I guess there's like probably a resale value on everything, but how do you like? I don't. It's still cornering, like actually like knowing the market and like making it profitable. To me, does seem like even in this world, it's a bit of a stretch and like a long game. That it's like there's not much of a guarantee. I know there's never a guarantee to make money, but it still seems for the time and effort you put in, it doesn't seem really worthwhile, at least in my mind.
Yeah.
Unless it's a thing where it's more of a sentimental value, then that's a little bit more understandable to me.
Yeah, yeah, I get that for sure. Yeah, it was fun too to see the little things that they'd mentioned, like some of the things that are still kind of like kitschy. They're not necessarily go for a lot of money, but they're still kind of popular. Or like the old ceramic mugs or the heavier German steins, that some people had. They mentioned, of course, sports cards that were popular, but they said that largely a lot of those from the '90s were so overproduced that they still don't
Yeah.
have a huge value. But there's some gems in there, obviously. And then they mentioned too that obviously some of the things in the '90s that we all thought were going to be valuable, like the whole Beanie Baby craze. Uh,
For the troll dolls and all this stuff, yeah.
Yeah, they mentioned that some of the sports ones still have a little bit of value because there's like the sports themed ones. But so they were joking about like all the crazy shit that that people will spend money on. And so then at the very end of the story, they said something along the lines. Oh, because they said that there's some other '90s vintage stuff that's kind of become recently kitschy popular. They said like Jinko jeans, Ed Hardy,
Yeah.
and they's like, well, maybe if that stuff's going on, maybe there is hope for that old box of Beanie Babies somewhere. Who knows? But definitely interesting, and it is cool. Some of that stuff's cool. I'm gonna have to do some searching through some of my stuff because I know I have, I know I have some of that, and I don't know. I don't know if I still have the Hornets jacket though. That one would be huge if I can find that bad boy. I don't know.
Shouldn't have had that garage sale and back in 2012. He should have just held off.
Yeah, yeah, no
Well, because
kidding.
that's my issue is like I'm I'm like the opposite of a hoarder, whatever it is. I freaking throw crap out as soon as I can. So like
Yeah.
I don't necessarily keep a lot of stuff. So that, and especially when at one point in my life I moved a little frequently, more than I cared to. So I was like, screw this. I never
Yeah.
know
Get
when
rid
it's
of
gonna
it. Yep.
happen again. So I'm just gonna live, you know, minimalist type of thing. So I don't know if I'm pretty sure that jacket's long gone, but hopefully you know, somebody at some Goodwill somewhere is maybe cashing in that picked it up back in
Hmm.
97 or something.
Yeah, yeah. I know I appreciate that mindset because as I sit here staring at all the crap that is in my basement that I wish was not here, I would like to get rid of it. One thing
So,
I do know that I have in a box that I'm hanging on to that I feel like at some point probably is going to get me some money is the old the Dream Team jacket that you had to
oh
save
yeah,
the
yeah,
box tops for.
yeah,
I've got
the
that
little
bad
like
boy.
windbreaker type
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see. I don't. There might be a lot of them out there. I don't know, but I feel like because it's so fragile, I feel like there's probably not many of them. And I never hardly wore it, and I just kept it, hung up, and now it's just been sitting in a box. So,
You bring that up, and you know what? I wish I had is one of those Pizza Hut basketballs you used to be able to get
yeah,
for like the NCAA tournament, and the want a game chump the commercial.
yeah,
I wish I still had one of those because I mean we played it and then them going flatter. Someone kicks it and it's all jacked up and you throw it away. But I wish one of those I think could maybe fetch you a few bucks, especially considering how like Pizza Hut basically is not like a that was back when it's still like a restaurant. You could
yeah.
go sit down and actually eat there. Now it's like I don't think it's just like a to go spot. I don't even know if they do book it anymore. That tells you the situation of their life.
No kidding. Yeah, times have changed.
Yeah.
So yeah, go if you got you got some piles, go dig through them. Who knows? You might have some buried treasures there from the '90s and have some fun with. So that was an interesting little story. Before we finish off here, I did mention SJ, you had a little fight going on in your backyard. We already kind of lamented on the whole situation with how it wasn't the easiest thing in the world to take a couple people to because of the cost.
For one person, yeah, yeah.
For one
Actually, I
person.
wouldn't even justify paying my. And that's the thing too. It's like someone that's like pretty interested and like follows it closely in the fight game, whether it be boxing or MMA. It's like you can't even justify that or be like, man, this would be worth my money spent. So that's mostly came out of it. Like I actually started pretty good. Had 5 picks in it. I didn't parlay it. I just did straight up bets. Won the first two, but the next three went south. So those part didn't be good. A couple of the last two, honestly, like the co-main event was like all I wanted was a finish in the second round, and of course the finish comes with you know less than a minute left in the first round. So
Mm,
pretty close, fairly
yeah.
close. The main event was kind of like a 50-50 shot. It took the guy I liked better on it. Sometimes I mean, maybe it's. I'm not saying it's like a winning strategy. And honestly, it was a pretty good fight. And he almost, if he would have threw like maybe 10 hammer fists there, he had him down in the last minute, like could ground and pound him. And he just like kind of let him up. And I think he just ran out of gas. This dude smokes like 10 cigarettes a day. And so I was like, it's like
Hmm.
his gift or something. I'm like, bro, like maybe you got to take it a little more seriously now fighting in the top 15 fights, you're trying to go for a belt, like put that shit away. So,
Hmm.
but either way, like not these that part was okay. It didn't do terrible. I'm not so mad at that. But more of it was just the fact that I just kept thinking, it's like, God, I wish I was there watching in person because this is probably the first time that it's been like whether it's been here in KC. I think I've been here twice or three times. And or Lincoln, I've been there a couple of times. Omaha, I've been a couple of times. They're going to be in Des Moines this coming weekend,
Okay.
so it's just like any regional. I probably would have tried to go, but
Hmm.
it's there's priced a lot of people out, and it does. I mean, the card that they had here was pretty good, but you get to your general fan, and they're not going to know more than half of these guys.
Hmm.
There's not even a regional pull to a lot of them, other than like I know there was two guys that fought that are like, I mean, I don't know. It's just I guess you could say like maybe like top 25 in their division, which is not great. Maybe top 30 in their weight class, let alone the whole thing. So they were both from Missouri. I guess there was a guy from North Kansas City that ended up winning on the main card. So, but he just was like, I don't know, he wasn't really from here. He's kind of like lived here or whatever. But I
Hmm.
know they got a guy from Iowa fighting Jeremy Stevens up there in Des Moines. So that's a local connection. They used to do that a lot more. But either way, it's like you're not getting like a great return for what you're paying because last check, and I was kind of checking up to the last minute where I thought maybe I could sneak down there. was, I mean, for a decent seat, it was over $200 easy. And the thing that kind of was just like made it even more a little bit more annoying was they were kind of touting that it was the largest gate for that arena in like its history, like any event that's ever been held there. And I'm like, well, I would hope so when you're charging $200 a head just to get in the door. I would hope that's the biggest gate they've ever had, because that's, to me, that's almost like that's almost criminal, man. That's and you got to, and it definitely wasn't capacity. Maybe it got to the sold out, because I don't know if a lot of people like kind of, there's a distinction there between every seat being filled and sold out. Like when these bots buy all these tickets, it's a bot. It doesn't mean that someone's there.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
A sellout is like a term. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's a full house. So they do a pretty good job with the lighting and in blacking out certain things and not letting you see the full crowd. But I do think, even with all that considered, there was, compared to most shows and even compared to like the last pay-per-view they had, there was definitely more people in the seats that were available.
Yeah.
So that was good to see. So they'll probably come back. But it's like, there's not a lot of things that I don't think you could pay, feel justified paying $200 some for like an extra, like an entertainment thing. I don't know, maybe I'm just like not up with the times, but to me it doesn't seem like a good use of funds, whether you have it or not. I guess maybe if you're just rolling in the money, go for it, have fun. But I don't know. Don't like to judge a book by its cover, but seeing some of those crowd shots, I don't know if those people have the funds that they were dishing out there. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Either they're putting themselves in more world of hurt, or
MasterCard's taking care of the bill.
Exactly.
They'll be calling you next week. You're maxed out there, buddy.
Yeah, that's not a good situation at all. Well, and then the other side of concern of those types of things, any event, not just this. Like if you start to get to that point, at some point too, where do you worry about you alienate your actual fans? Like it's just going to turn into a corporate event,
Yeah, and then the bad part about it too is like, to me, is like, I don't know, one person doesn't make a big difference, but I kind of just like feel like at the point you just got to be like, that's like enough. You got to just draw the line. Like hopefully enough people will wise up, because if they're going to get that fee, why wouldn't you charge it? And it's just going to keep going and going until eventually they're like, okay, 300 is too much. But to me, it's already past that threshold. And I don't know, it's not my favorite sport, so I don't feel like terrible, but it's definitely something I'd enjoy attending. I don't do a lot of concerts, don't do a lot of movies, not a big golfer as far as like a round of golf. Like now you get me to a driving range or something in that neighborhood, I'm all about that. Or maybe like a little short par 3, a quick 9 hole, something like that. But so that would be like my entertainment, would be going to a fight. And it's like, at this point, it's like I don't even feel like I should do that, because it just seems wasteful. It's like, what would I feel that much better today if I would have dropped $500?
Yeah,
I don't think I would have. So
but
now I feel better. So unless I knew I was going, unless I cashed in, then maybe I'd sing a different tune there. But if I'd have hit all 5 picks, but even still, it's like, I don't know. Seems like we waste enough, just as in society enough. I don't need to just be that wasteful with our finances. So I'm just going to go ahead and sit it out. But it does, I know it seems like it does, even if like I said, I don't do the concerts and the movie thing, but it does seem like concerts are kind of, at least the people I've talked to, are kind of heading in that direction as well, when you consider all the fees and all that type of thing. So, I mean, I'm hoping to hit a college football game, and I might have to just justify that this year, because I haven't been able to get out of town, and it's going to be right in the same city I reside, so I might have to bite the bullet on that one. So that was probably factored into part of my decision, being the fact that I don't have to travel or worry about a hotel room or anything like that. So
it's, I don't know, it is interesting, that whole world in general. Like there's going to have to be some course correction at some point, because like you said, more and more people are just going to say this isn't worth it. You gotta justify a lot of things, and that can't be priority number one, obviously. So it's hard.
I mean, we've said it time. Of course, everybody knows. Like, and it's just the ticket's not the only thing you're gonna spend on either. So that's just like where it begins. So that, and then up from there. So
no doubt. All right, so that's what we had here on our docket here for you this time around. I will say too, be on the lookout for more on the finishing off of the Parch Madness. That has not quite been decided yet with that final. I think we've got an inkling of where this is going to go, but the voting will still be open. So we'll talk about that finale for you coming up on next week's program. So we'll get that to you. We probably will drop you maybe a little video later this week, though, because we do have the Kentucky Derby coming up this weekend. Like SJ alluded to, it's also a big fight weekend, especially in the boxing world. So we'll put some stuff together for you on that front and try to get that out for you before the weekend. So we would appreciate if you would, of course, like, subscribe, get the notifications on the YouTube channel so you'll get those. And, of course, follow us on social media. We'll have them there as well. At SJM Bets, at Cherokee CP. Those are our handles there on Twitter. And then also, of course, if you would like, share the podcast. All the platforms, it's available everywhere. Our host happens to be at Spotify, but you can find us in whatever service you like to use the most, including on that YouTube channel. So get ready to hear that later this week. That's SJ Munoz. I'm Chris Parks. Thanks for joining us for another week of Every Day We're Covering. We'll see you next time for some more covers.